Scenes and Adventures in the Semi-Alpine Region of the Ozark Mountains of Missouri and Arkansas, 1853, by Henry Rowe, Schoolcraft. Chapter 5, Part 2, Number 13. November 24th. The stick frames without bark of several Indian lodges were passed today, denoting that they had not been recently occupied. Traveling down the opposite side of the vale from that taken by my companion, who had charge of the horse, I came to a point on the bank of the river where I discovered two grown beavers sporting in the stream. The tail of this animal, which appears clumsy and unwieldy in the dead specimen, gives the animal a graceful appearance in the water, where it makes him appear to have a very elongated body. After diving about for some time, they came to the shore and sat in front of their wives, as it is termed by the Algonquins, or lodge, which in this case was a fissure in the rock. I was perfectly screened by a point of the rock from their view, and sat with my gun cocked, reserving my fire a few moments, the more perfectly to observe them, when both animals at the same instant darted into their holes. Under the influence of a keen appetite and a tolerably open forest, we pressed on this day about 15 miles, the horse being, as usual, our chief hindrance. November 25th. I took the horse's bridle over my arm this morning and had proceeded through open woods about 10 miles, when we descried from a little summit a hut in the distance, which had some traits of the labor of white men. This gave animation to our steps in the hope of finding it occupied. But as we approached, we could discern no smoke rising up as a sign of occupancy, and were disappointed to find it an abortive effort of some pioneer, and at the moment called it Camp Number. We afterwards learned that it had been constructed by one Martin, who, as there was not a foot of land in cultivation, had probably aimed to subsist by the chase alone. The location was well chosen. A large cane brake flanked the river, sufficient to give range to horses and cattle. A little tributary stream bounded a fertile piece of upland east of this. The hut was built of puncheons, supported on one side by a rude ridge pole, leaving the front of it open, forming a shed which had a roof and floor. But the stream had now dried up. We found a plant of cotton bowled out amongst the adjacent weeds, which proved the soil and climate suitable to its culture. We were now well within the probable limits of Arkansas. It was determined to encamp at this spot, turn the horse into the adjacent canebrake where the leaves were green, to deposit our baggage and camp apparatus in one corner of the hut, and after making light packs, to take our arms and proceed in search of settlements. This required a little time. To reach a point where civilization had once tried to get a foothold, however, was something, and we consoled ourselves with the reflection that we could not be remote from its skirts. The next day, 26th, I made an excursion west of the river from our position about 5 miles to determine satisfactorily our situation. I found on the opposite side of the valley, a little higher up at the foot of the cliff, another small white man's hut, which had also been abandoned. In a small patch of ground which had once been cleared, there grew a pumpkin vine, which then had 3 pumpkins. This was a treasure which I at once secured. I found that one of them had been partially eaten by some wild animal, and determined to give it to my horse, but could not resist the inclination first to cut off a few slices, which I ate raw with the greatest appetite. The taste seemed delicious. I had not before been aware that my appetite had become so keen by fasting, for we had but little to eat for many days. Between the horse and myself, we finished it and had quite a sociable time of it. With the other 2, which were the largest, I rode back to camp, where, having a small camp kettle, we boiled and dispatched them, without meat or bread, for supper. It does not require much to make one happy, for in this instance our little luck put us in the best of humor.